Well, the weather outside is less than ideal for riding, so I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to work on the old Jon Snow over here. Old Shadow Fox is getting a wash, so that's always good. I had to half close the garage because the wind is fucking my canvases up over here. I'm afraid they're gonna fall. So the main reason I want to put an exhaust system on here is because the stock one is, well, for one, extremely restrictive, and there's not much horsepower on this bike anyway. I think it's like 16 horsepower, so every little bit counts. Two, it's very, very quiet, so it's not even safe having such a quiet exhaust. I mean, if cars can't see you, they at least need to be able to hear you, so, you know, that's that. Not to mention, I do want my bike to sound a little better too. Give me a little more feedback when I'm ripping on it. UPS is here, sweet. Well, the little can light isn't doing anything for anybody, so let's go ahead and turn on the LEDs. Whoop. There we go. So yeah, finishing up the floor right now, it's looking pretty good. I cut all this wood myself on the old table jigsaw looking thing over there. And now in order to make sure that it's all sealed and there's no gaps or anything like that, holy shit, that's a huge worm. And there's a frog over there too. Oh my goodness gracious. That is crazy. Yeah, so I'm using some of this like wood putty stuff that I guess dries like wood. Holy shit, man. I should probably close the garage a little bit more, my goodness. Oh, that's open. There we go. But yeah, all in all, the garage is really coming together pretty well. I'd say about another 2 or 3 days and it'll be pretty much complete up to my standards, but it's looking pretty saucy overall. Not this area over here, don't look over here, it's just a huge blown out mess. The walls look good, but the shelving needs a good organizing. This little speed demon here, might be a build on this bad boy in the near future, boost the battery voltage and see what we can do. But yeah, besides the exhaust and the fairing, I'm gonna find a way to side mount this license plate and then remove this whole section here. This is just a reflector, that's the actual tail light. So basically kind of do a homemade fender eliminator kit. I know it is a dual sport, however I still think it would increase the body lines and the looks of it if it just had that huge fairing, that huge rear fender removed. So gonna go ahead and do that. Should be pretty easy. I think I'm gonna bolt this hole up to this bolt right here on the chain guard. So hopefully that works. If not, I can always buy a kit on Amazon that bolts to the actual rear axle. So we'll see about that. Alrighty, got the old ratchet set out, and I want to find out what size this bad boy is here so we can go ahead and remove this diggity dog. So it is on there, but I'm not really liking it. For one, it sticks out pretty fucking far, so I think I want to mount it vertically. I think the wind would catch it a lot less, so it would be a lot more durable, and it would look a lot better. Not to mention, if I lean pretty hard to the left, I mean, I guess I'd have to be leaned over pretty damn far, but that looks like it potentially could scrape, so that's no bueno. Alrighty, got the 3 exhaust components, well 4 if you include the hardware, laid out here. And this is also a jet kit that I got off eBay from Six Sigma, and it is specified for the modifications that I'm going to have on here and also for the elevation of the city that I live in. Hopefully this will correct the bike running pretty lean. It runs lean from factory, so once I put the exhaust on, it's getting more airflow, well, airflow in from the airbox mod and airflow out from the exhaust. It's going to be running super lean, which is not good, especially because the bike is only has 50 miles on it. It's in its break-in period. You don't want to be running it too lean, it'll get really hot. So this jet kit should make it run a lot better, not only faster, but also just healthier, because it'll kind of richen it up a little bit. So that's the goal. So I have heard that this exhaust flange does not exactly line up with this, so I might need to do a little bit of customization to get it to work, but you know what? We're gonna make it happen. All right, getting my little workstation set up, got my little air conditioner that I purchased. That was a great buy, just gloved up. My hands are already fucking filthy, so I don't really know what the purpose of this is, but hey, whatever. Got my little chair, got my components out here. got my drill, got my screwdriver, and this should be a pretty straightforward install. I say that, but I'm probably gonna run into a few snags because it isn't really meant for this bike, but it is for a similar model, so I should be able to fabricate something. All right, so I got the two side panels off, pretty easy. One bolt holds on each one, and they were actually pretty loose. They were like hand tightened, so they came right off. While I have the seat off, which by the way, to remove the seat, there are two bolts, one there and one on the reverse side. Got your battery right there, and this is your air box, which while I have the seat off, I'm gonna be taking my Dremel tool and cutting into this air box a little bit more to give it some more airflow, because these are extremely restrictive. Mainly because they want to keep them watertight so you don't suck up any water, but honestly, it's underneath the seat, so it's pretty damn unlikely that you're going to be, unless you're in a torrential downpour, it's pretty unlikely you're going to be getting any water up inside your air filter. So I'm going to go ahead and Dremel this out a little bit to give it a little more airflow. Between that and the exhaust and the jet kit, that should really wake this beast up. Got the exhaust cover off. This was kind of a bitch because in order to get to it, you do need to remove the seat, which I was going to do anyway because it makes working on this bike a whole lot easier. But these two screws were pretty easy to access, but this one right here, it's at a really bad angle, so you have to have a long neck screwdriver to get in there, and yeah, just less than ideal. Stock exhaust is out. I actually ended up taking off the front fairing too because I clipped my thumb pretty good on it, and yeah, I didn't want that to happen again. But you got a whole bunch of rubber grommets in here, which I'm going to reuse obviously with the new exhaust. Hopefully they fit up pretty well. We're going to see. It was kind of a bitch to get the exhaust out of the frame and everything, but luckily it just kind of separated at the middle, so it wasn't too nothing too crazy. So we're about to see about the reverse process of getting everything all bolted back up. So the exhaust flange holes are a little bit too narrow, so on one of them I'm gonna have to take my Dremel or cut out a little bit of the side here to make it fit, but should still work just fine. I'm gonna throw a washer in there to distribute the weight properly so it still gets a good seal and everything, and yeah, make it happen. I am officially impressed. The little tiny itty bitty Dremel wheel can actually cut through steel, so holy fuck, that's awesome. Alright, so in order to get the exhaust flange to fit, I had to cut off this little piece here. I did break a cutting wheel in the process. I think it was operator error. I put it in a weird angle or whatever. But that's what it looks like right now. And in order to get a good seal to make sure that I'm not getting any exhaust gas leaks out of the manifold there, I'm going to put a washer around it so it'll still seal up. And that's kind of what you got to do if you want to install an exhaust on the Zhongsheng or CSC TT250, because they don't make a specific exhaust system for it. So you have to go, I'll have a link in the description below to this exact exhaust system, which is meant for a Honda CR230F, which is like basically the same exact motor, air-cooled 229cc motor. So yeah. So my little ghetto-ass washer idea did work pretty damn good. But a little sidebar, a little note for you guys that are installing this exhaust system, you want to make sure that this piece is fitted first before you bolt this up, because you can't really, with that rubber washer in there, that gasket, you can't really fit this in here properly. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt this in first, and then I'll do these over here, and then obviously lastly the muffler mount. Alright, so this is the hardest part of the install so far. I took a lot of finagling to make sure that this bolt could line up properly, and then also the exhaust manifold bolts would actually line up properly. Clearance-wise, the clutch lever is pretty much almost on the exhaust when it's fully extended like this, but it's not touching, it's just almost touching. Everything else though, clearance through the frame looks good. It's not touching the airbox. If you see, there's about a 1/4 inch of space between the airbox. It's not touching the frame right here. So fitment, I mean, for not being for this motorcycle, is actually pretty fucking good. So I'm pretty excited. I'm just gonna have to bend this clutch lever just a little bit, but that's not a big deal. To tighten up your exhaust manifold bolts, you want to go back and forth so you distribute the weight or the pressure evenly, and you want to make sure that they are screwed in completely tightly, or you are going to have an exhaust leak, which sucks because that is the worst spot to have an exhaust leak, because basically none of your exhaust system is being utilized. It's all pouring out of the manifold here. Alright boys, so fitment issue number 2. Focus. Anyway, fitment issue number 2. The first one was making sure that this bolt and the exhaust manifold up there would actually correlate with each other, would actually work with each other. Now, the muffler is about an inch and a half down from where it needs to be to mount up. I have the spring in there and everything, so the muffler, this is where it's supposed to sit, but it doesn't really line up. And if I push it up and like kind of bend it, then this pipe here is touching the frame, and this is touching the airbox, and basically it just screws everything else up. So I'm about to MacGyver this shit. I have this TV wall mount here that I'm not using. I'm gonna go ahead and cut into this and use it like an adapter, so I can basically extend where it needs to attach at, and then just use some washers, nuts, and bolts to link it up. So I was holding up the stock muffler to see how it lines up so I can compare with the aftermarket here, and oh my god, this is like double or triple the weight. So even if there's no like actual horsepower gains, just the sheer weight loss alone, so worth it. Not to mention cosmetically, it looks a whole hell of a lot better. I actually fabricated this whole piece here from like a random piece of metal I had laying around in my garage, and it works pretty good, but this hole here is not wide enough for the bolt that I need to put in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and Dremel it out a little bit. Alright, so I'm pretty damn proud of myself. This little ghetto-ass mount that I fabricated actually looks pretty good, and it holds the muffler in there really well, so I'm pretty excited about that. About to give it its first start. I'm going to take my bare hand and check all the different the linkage points and make sure there's no exhaust leaks, and also, more importantly, just hear what this bad boy sounds like. Definitely excited for that. Neutral, yeah. Fuel on. Oh yeah, sounds way better. Oh my god, that sounds so much better. Alright, let's check for exhaust leaks. So nothing around the cylinder head here. Ooh, that's getting hot already, holy shit. Here. Nothing around the muffler. I'm probably even going to put kind of a linkage ring right there so I can tighten it up, but it seems like most of the exhaust is coming out of the muffler. Throw a couple quick revs, you know. God damn. So apparently this top rubber gasket right here where I made this little custom mount is actually where the body clip goes for the side fairing, and that was where the original exhaust went, because this is, you know, a lot shorter. But it's not gonna be a big deal. I'm gonna Dremel this off, and there's still a clip in the front and then also a bolt that holds the fairing in place, so I don't really think the fairing's gonna go flying because of that one clip.